Welcome to the Listen to Your Gut podcast with international best-selling author Jeannie Patel Thompson. Because your body is your subconscious. Your body is the densest part of your soul. Okay, today we've got Dr. Scott Tyler, who is a second-generation naturopathic physician following in his father's footsteps. He graduated from the National University of Natural Medicine in Portland in 1986 and has practiced in Langley, BC and Canada ever since. He developed a keen interest in conditions that relate to metabolic dysfunction, particularly hypothyroidism, which we are going to be talking about for sure. He has since co-authored a book, A Pound of Prevention, in 1995 with his father, Dr. Alan N. Tyler, and is presently working on a book of his own about thyroid disease. He participated in a private herbal product company in BC called Bowen Island Botanicals. He served as vice president and a board member for 10 years with the Northwest Naturopathic Convention, chaired the Canadian Naturopathic Education and Research Society, and sat on several committees of the BC College of Naturopathic Physicians. Dr. Tyler also established a free clinic for the homeless in Langley at the Salvation Army with his lifelong friend, Dr. Ted Slay. In 2018, he joined the Boucher College Clinic as a supervisor. He believes that the future of the profession lies squarely in the hands of students and new graduates, and continues to teach regularly at his own office as a satellite clinic of the school. He has no plan to retire anytime soon, and so continues practicing out of one of the oldest federally recognized commercial buildings from 1889, which I've been to in Langley Prairie at Murrayville. It is the cutest building. Absolutely adore it. He spends his free time on his hobby farm where he lives with his wife and one of their two daughters and her family. Scott, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Ginny.
So we're going to dive right. I have a lot of stuff that I want to talk to you about, but I think let's kick this off by asking you a very critical question, because someone with all your experience, both clinical and teaching, hundreds and thousands of patients, what's in your medicine bag, like your personal medicine cabinet at your home? Tell us what's in there.
Excellent question. Okay. So I may have mentioned this to you personally before, but I like to have certain things in my medicine cabinet just in case of an emergency. And in British Columbia, as you know, we kind of live on a ring of fire, as they call it, and we could have a natural disaster. Aside from flooding, we could have a big problem like an earthquake or something anytime. So I want to advise everyone to be at least somewhat prepared for that. Have a water supply or some way to clean water. I do. So I use the same system the US military uses to clean water. So they give it to their soldiers, they can drink from a mud puddle then. So you've got to have water, but perhaps more importantly, you've got to have a way to sterilize things. And I like good old-fashioned peroxide for that. I'm not talking the food grade one. That's pretty strong stuff. If you know how to handle that, go ahead. But don't use it full strength. It's very corrosive. But you can buy a simple bottle of 3% hydrogen peroxide at the grocery store or at your drugstore. And you can apply that to cuts and scrapes, even more serious wounds, penetrating wounds. But we have to stop infection, and that's the main thing. So that's a real easy one. You might also know that bleach, like good old Clorox, can be applied to water for drinking, just in a drop form. So a few drops in a quart of water and shake it up, let it sit for a minute, and then it's sterilized.
If you're sterilizing with the 3% hydrogen peroxide, how many drops or how much do you add per quart?
That's a great question. I've used about a half a capful, so it has a little screw on cap. I put a half a cap in a quart of water and shake it up and just let it sit for a minute till it stops foaming. Pretty easy. So it's a nice way.
Now tell me why you prefer hydrogen peroxide to potassium iodide for sterilizing water.
Well, most people don't have any iodine, which we can talk
Ah,
about.
right.
And secondly, if they do have iodine in some form, they don't know how much to put in there because it's in different concentrations. Like Lugol solution comes in several concentrations. And
True.
not that you could hurt yourself with iodine ever. It's non-toxic in even very large amounts, but it doesn't taste very good. And
True.
that's probably the big issue with it. And otherwise, it's amazing, incredible stuff. So that's the other thing I have at home.
Right.
I have iodine in a bottle. So I like that. I bought that one online, and everybody else can too. There are reputable places that sell that. And the question might be next, how much should I take if I'm going to take some iodine? And please take some iodine every day. I was just checking in with the very famous Cleveland Clinic. I don't agree with everything that they say, but they're very pro iodine, which I was happy to see. And their, of course, standard line is the same line you'll hear everywhere: is 150 micrograms of iodine a day is recommended. That's very antiquated thinking and is wholly inadequate. But they do mention also that, to their credit, that pregnant women should have 250 micrograms, which is a quarter of a milligram, which is insignificant, but is enough to prevent most birth defects. And that's the main reason to make sure it's in mom's diet. So it'd be hard for her to get enough from eating potatoes, salting her potatoes, etc. There's just not enough there. Easier just to get some liquid iodine or iodine tablets and take, a milligram, 1,000 micrograms a day. It's non-toxic, will never hurt the baby, won't even cross the placenta, which is, an important thing to know. But mom's already got a depressed thyroid from her pregnancy. That's just a fact of life. And we all know that, but it's nice to support mom's thyroid through the pregnancy. It gives her a better outcome and the baby a better outcome. And we have a healthier person. Both are healthier afterwards. Give it to dad too. Absolutely.
For a man or woman, obviously who's not pregnant, what dosage of iodine do you recommend to your patient?
Oh, thanks for asking. Yeah, I take 6 milligrams a day, which sounds like a lot. It's 6,000 micrograms, but there are people, not in studies, but they're just taking, as much as 12 or 25 or more milligrams of iodine a day. What I would say is take it to the whatever your symptoms require. So it's good to have a healthy thyroid, and you can't have that without iodine. So we have a really serious global thyroid problem, and it's principally due to lack of iodine. So the healthy people on Earth get lots of iodine, and they're usually in places like Japan or more specifically Okinawa, where they eat lots of seaweed and seafood. I think cod used to be a good source of iodine, but where are you going to get cod these days? The fishery is done on our coasts anyway.
So for yourself personally, for maintenance, you take 6 milligrams of iodine per day.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
All right.
So it can you become hyperthyroid from too much iodine? Well, in theory, but people that have taken thousands and thousands of times the RDA never became permanently ill from it. They did get some symptoms, but they recovered entirely.
Yeah, so let's I was going to save this for later, but let's jump on it now. I was going to raise that with you because what we've always heard is, as soon as you're supplementing with any kind of iodine, potassium iodine, Lugol's iodine, you better monitor for longer than 2 weeks. You have to have your thyroid monitored on a regular, ongoing basis.
Well, I'm very, whoops, pardon me, and knocking stuff over here. Uh, I feel really fortunate because I live in a time like you do where we have computers and technology. We can reach out around the globe to almost anyone. So I did that because I had that question in my mind. And so I reached out to a wonderful, forgive me, Dr. Midgley, a wonderful old doctor, Dr. John Midgley. He's an MD, and he's one of the last remaining thyroidologists on earth. And he's an expert in thyroid function and thyroid disease and thyroid testing. In fact, he's the same Dr. Midgley that created the tests that we use today, principally the free T3 and the free T4, which most people in this province of British Columbia will not see for various reasons. But anyway, I won't get into that yet, maybe. But Dr. Midgley told me personally, from him to me, he said, don't worry so much about the testing. Look at the patient's symptoms. And I thought, wow, that's some wisdom that, I do know that already, but it was nice to hear from him as one of the last living experts in the world.
So what would those symptoms be if someone was getting too much iodide?
Oh, okay, sure. So if somebody got excess iodine, they would get, number one, they get some upset in their stomach. So they'd feel kind of sick to their stomach. They might even throw up. More likely they get diarrhea, which is not very nice, but won't kill you because we go, oh boy, I must have eaten something. Yeah, maybe I overdosed it. But, if somebody is chugging iodine, that's what's going to happen. Likely they'll just get diarrhea. So if they do that persistently, they could elevate their thyroid function. In fact, those who clinically and in published research have had way too much iodine, they become, most of them will become hyperthyroid. But it doesn't kill them. They just get really skinny and jittery and sweaty. There are worse things that could happen to a person. So it's not fatal. People don't die from it. I defy anyone to find a piece of published research that shows it's fatal. I couldn't find a case. I dug through the research. I dug into the RCMP's files in British Columbia. I had to go back to 1936 to find a case of iodine poisoning,
Wow.
which was a murder investigation. That's the only one in the books.
Do you remember what it said about
I don't remember what the dose was. They weren't specific in those days on that file that I could access, but it was investigated. It was a murder, and it was investigated as an iodine poisoning. Like, how could you get it with that? It looks brown. It tastes like brown. It doesn't taste very good. But you'd be really hard pressed. It's pretty hard to pick any other substance on earth that you could eat 50,000 times the recommended daily allowance and live. I mean, water doesn't even qualify. Water would kill you at that dose. So I think I know iodine is very safe. I know that it's critical. It's required for human nutrition. There's not enough in our diet. According to Cleveland Clinic, very few Americans have iodine deficiency. It's a rarity, in fact, they claim. But that said, why then are there 120 million prescriptions? That's 120 million. That's a third of the US population. Why are that many prescriptions written every year for thyroid hormone? They're hypothyroid. It's so some of the conclusions don't make a lot of sense to me, but.
So when you have, we're gonna roll with the iodine and thyroid for now. We're gonna get back to your medicine cabinet later. When you have a patient come in who is low thyroid functioning. Okay, so first of all, what are the signs that you look for that you commonly see?
Great question. So you mentioned I'm working on a book. I'm nearing completion, I hope, on it. I'm a perfectionist, so I like it to be all, teed up perfectly. So I'm not a volume 1, volume 2 writer. I wanted to do it once. But what am I looking for? Well, on the back cover of the book, it says, do you suffer from any of these 5 C's? The 5 C's. It's an easy, catchy thing. So are you cold? Now, remember, I said, do you suffer from any of these? Some have them all. Some have 1 or 2, but they're going to have 1 anyways. Are you cold? Are you constipated? There's the iodine thing again, maybe. Are you cold? Are you constipated? Corpulent. That's a term, a medical term for, gaining weight. So corpulent, gaining weight. Are you cold, constipated, gaining weight? It's got to be a C word. Are you confused? How about that one? Oh, my memory's terrible. You hear that a lot. I know you do, the public and from your people that follow you, and I hear it lots every day, sadly. Cold, constipated, corpulent, confused. See, now there you go. I need to read the book a little bit more. I waffle a bit on this one. I wanted to use a word that is understandable, but I picked circadian, which relates to or cascading. I like that too. So it refers to hair loss, cascading. And circadian refers to more of a fatigue kind of a thing.
Right.
But so if you're tired and your hair is falling out and you're cold and you're constipated and can't remember your grocery list, you might want to think about upping iodine, number 1. And we're not bad or indictable for that offense. It is what it is. There's just none in the diet because there's none in our environment. And how are the plants going to get iodine if it's not in the environment, in the soil? So if you have symptoms like that, and goodness knows there are 300 plus symptoms related to thyroid. In fact, forgive me while I diverge here for a moment. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So fatty liver is being diagnosed left and right today. It's a very common problem. Apparently 25% of the people in the world with liver disease have that. And I can tell you, I know there's published research because I've read it. It's linked to thyroid. So if our body's not burning or consuming fat, which is a great energy source, if it's not consuming the fat, it gets stored in the liver. And then it complicates. There's a tremendous amount of trouble coming from fatty liver disease.
And healthy fat, because the unhealthy fats especially are what gets stored because the body can't do anything with it. So why
they hang around longer.
Give us a quick list.
Big long fats are long chains, the saturated fats, in other words. The short chain fats like omega-3s, like fish fat, and they're easier to consume. I like them. They're anti-inflammatory, of course.
Are you a big fan of grass-fed animal fats like beef tallow, lard?
Sure, I eat that. I eat that fat because I've got my metabolism working. You can see it's warm in this room. I feel warm right now. But that said, I've got my metabolism up, so I'm burning calories to make energy. I can go and have a nap and burn calories, which I wish everyone would do. Not take a nap, but burn calories. So if you burn calories, you don't need a nap, which ties into the whole circadian business. And in the waking and sleeping that gets messed up. Sleep gets disturbed terribly with thyroid disease. They just want to sleep all the time and they never feel refreshed.
Right.
It's fixable, I can assure you. So when they walk in the door and they say, gee, I'm really tired and I got a terrible memory and my hair is falling out. Those are red flags. Nothing else causes that. You'd have to be dying of malnutrition to lose hair. And in our part of the world, we don't do that. So it's got to be something metabolic. And remember, the hair follicles are super metabolizers. They're like the canary in the mine.
Hmm.
They're the harbingers of trouble. So if the hair follicles are dying, it's not good.
So if someone walked into your clinic with those 5 C's,
Oh, yes.
now
All
let's say, because I have a lot of listeners in the States, where their healthcare for blood work and medical tests can be astronomically expensive. So let's say
yes.
someone can't afford to go to a doctor, have those tests done, but they've got the 5 C's. What would be a safe dose of iodine for them to start supplementing with?
Excellent. Oh, get started. I would lean on the side of a little bit higher, like 3 milligrams. So 3,000 micrograms. So if they find a liquid iodine that's, 600 micrograms in one drop, take, I can't do the math,
Yeah.
4 or 5 drops, 5 drops. There you go. That would get them 3 milligrams. It sounds like a lot. It's not, as I alluded to
No,
earlier.
this is the one that we sell in our shop.
Beautiful.
Potassium iodide. You're getting a glare on it. But anyway, when I told you what this has 25 milligrams in one drop.
I told you there are people taking more than that.
So I've been doing this for the last what's it been, about 2 weeks since I saw you last time. I've been taking this every single day.
Fabulous.
And
Wow.
yeah, so far so good. So
Wow.
just a drop. And if sometimes it's hard to get one drop off. So if 2 drops go in and then I just skip a day, I skip the next day.
Yeah. Well,
But
we know it's not going to hurt you. It's not toxic.
which is miraculous, because a lot of my scar tissue protocols for both intestinal strictures and rectal strictures use this very high
Beautiful.
potassium iodide. And I've always told people, okay, well, but if you're staying on it for longer than 2 weeks, make sure you have your thyroid monitored. So knowing that, we don't have to do that. They can just do the protocols, and not only will they be fine, but the iodine is probably going to fix some other issues that they have.
Oh yeah. There's a list as long as your arm. By the way, here's the simplest test for thyroid. Somebody, I've had many students ask me those same questions. And I said, well, if someone walks into your office and, check their pulse rate, you're obliged to do their vital signs, at least should look at that. So if their pulse rate, is 120 sitting in a chair, or I've seen them at 135 where they have an overactive thyroid. Not in a child, they have much higher heart rates, but if their heart rate is at 70 or 80 or even 90, or they're 100 because they're nervous meeting somebody, or just at home sitting there relaxing, if their heart rate is 60 or 70 or 80, they don't have an overactive thyroid. That's impossible. Impossible. Guaranteed.
So what's the break point on the pulse rate for an overactive thyroid?
Well, the textbook says 120. But if you're sitting at home alone, in your recliner, reading a book or something, and your heart rate's, breaking 120, it's might be worth looking into.
Right.
Medications aside, because medications do weird things to people. Mostly, if they're seeing a medical doctor for blood pressure, they're going to get stuff that slows their heart down to nothing almost.
Right.
Sadly.
Okay, I also want to jump back to the water filtration system you said you have, which is the same one the U.S. military issued.
Oh yeah.
Can you give us a brand name on that, or what?
I think it's called Life Straw or something like that.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that.
You just you pull it out of the pack, stick it in the water, and suck on the other end, and it filters through a charcoal filter. I think it is, or a micropore filter of some type.
Awesome.
But those are terrific, and you can get them. I bought a whole whack of them for my family. I gave them to my kids, put them in their emergency kits and for their families and friends even. But it's a nice gift.
I like that because it's also super portable, because like in
Yeah,
an earthquake or the wildfires that California's been having, like you got to get out fast. So if you have a bag
yeah.
packed
Where's
full,
my sport bottle? You don't have time for that.
no, if it's sitting there in your medicine bag ready for you to grab as you flee, because I have a Berkey stainless steel filter and that does the same thing. Like you can take muddy, scummy pond water and put it through your Berkey and it comes out totally pristine, clean, ready to drink.
Yeah,
But it's a unit. Like you would have to carry it. It was like you might not have room for it. So
yeah. Well,
I
this
like
one's
the
this one's looks like a Starbucks straw almost. It's pretty small. It's a little bigger than that, but it's very portable. Just like you would want for your backpack if you were a soldier kind of thing.
right. Okay, so back
Uh,
to the thyroid, because I know
yeah.
a lot of people who've been on, desiccated pig thyroid, armor
Hmm.
thyroid.
Hmm.
The people I know tend to avoid the synthetic thyroid,
Hmm.
like Synthroid. But even
Yeah. Oh,
if they've
yes.
been
Good.
on a natural thyroid supplement for, I know people who've been on it for 5 or 10 years. What would you do with a patient like that to kind of can you restore normal thyroid function? How does iodine play into that picture?
Oh, it's possible. Absolutely. They have to have iodine, and they have to become replete in iodine. So they got to start there. Number one. So and thereafter, they have to get enough protein in their diet, and everybody pretty much has got that covered. Uh, and then they can get the building blocks for the thyroid. A multivitamin has all the other little bits and pieces that are required. There's a little bit of copper we need, and riboflavin, etc. So, good daily multivitamin. You'll outlive everybody else if you take a multivitamin. By the way, especially if there's iodine in it. And the good ones have some iodine and some selenium, because selenium is required to convert the T4, which the thyroid makes, the bulk of anyway, which is thyroxine. So the
Mhm.
hormone thyroxine needs to be converted to uh, T3, the active hormone. It doesn't happen without selenium. So it's pretty desperate. There's no selenium in our soil in North America until you get down to roughly Medford, Oregon. So the soil was all pushed down through glaciation. So there's selenium down there in Oregon, thankfully. But the rest of us have to get it in a pill.
Right.
A couple of hundred micrograms a day, which segues into what if you have hypothyroidism that's not primary? So if you don't get enough iodine for your life since you were born, that's pretty common. So you could have a primary, failure of the thyroid gland, which is primary hypothyroidism. But let's say by some miracle, you're making enough T4. So if you're
Hmm.
getting enough thyroid hormone production and you can't activate it into T3, that in part is known as Hashimoto's disease.
Hmm.
So Hashimoto discovered it. It's an inflammatory or autoimmune really disorder. So the immune system's involved in that. And when things are bad, it gets involved. And we want to placate that to some degree. And we can do that with selenium. We can make sure they get 200 micrograms every day, and it'll cure the Hashimoto's. It's published. It just surprises me when I hear endocrinologists say, "Oh, that's not curable." Like, what do you mean it's not curable? So, well, what do you do to treat it? Oh, we don't do anything. It's not curable. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
ludicrous. But selenium, it's published research. I didn't do the research. It's from the American Journal of Nutrition, Clinical Nutrition. It's really good science, but they don't read journals apparently. Lots of doctors.
They don't have time. It's amazing
Yeah,
how
well,
it's
make
like they
time. Our
graduate
job.
med school and
Yeah,
then a lot of the learning,
get it.
except for the pharmaceutical sponsored conferences, stops because they're slammed, and
Yeah,
they're exhausted.
I don't want to hear that even from my students. They're required to stay on top of things. If you love what you do, you can't get enough of it. I read research constantly. I just devour it. because I want to stay on top of things, and that's my job,
Hmm.
right? If I had a blog website and I didn't know how to work the computer, I'd be done.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be much good. Nevertheless, it's incumbent on doctors to be educated and to stay educated and to stay, on the cutting edge, if you will. We don't have to be good at everything, but the things that we do, we should be very good at. And we have no excuse. We have lots of colleagues to call or call upon to ask questions of. That's what I do. I just
Yeah,
figure
no, I totally agree with you. I'm not
I
arguing
just
with you,
talk to the
but
world experts. I love talking to the experts because they're very kind usually.
yeah.
They're very pleasant to me. I'm just a family doctor, but they're pretty nice. They talk down a bit to me sometimes, but I understand what they're saying. I get it, and it's great to be on top of things, to know the answers. It's a great thing. It's
I
it's
agree.
about knowing. It's
I
about
agree.
knowing. There's
However, I am going to interject because although that's what should be happening, if you
yes.
have a doctor, whether medical or naturopathic, and they've got young children, or they're in the middle of a divorce, or they are divorced, so they're having their split custody, and their life is a
Yeah.
that the research is the first thing that goes because they literally don't have time for it and they don't have energy. It's like they're drowning. They're just trying to keep their head above water.
Mhm. I
So
bet they're not taking some iodine. That's the problem.
yeah, and their own self-care goes right
Yeah.
down the toilet usually.
Mhm.
So
Oh,
for
for
sure, it's
sure.
like no one's immune to stress and trauma, right? So
That's right.
again, that's why we're doing podcasts like this, so that
Mhm.
lay people can also be educating themselves. And that's what I see with my readers. My readers, I mean, any given one of them is probably educating their MD or their gastroenterologist, guaranteed, because
That's
they've had to.
fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, super and super intense on the research. Okay, so let's get back to the medicine bag so far. We've got Life Straw, water filtration. We've got 3% hydrogen peroxide. We've got your iodine or your potassium iodide, and we've got a multivitamin
Mhm.
with with at least 200 micrograms of selenium per day. Like really high quality multivitamin. You need the whole B complex in there. Like,
Sure. Exactly.
yeah.
Yes.
What
Yeah.
else?
Not don't go crazy on the B complex. People come in and say, "Oh, I'm really tired." I think, "Uh-oh, one of the C's." Uh, then they say, "Well, I'm taking 100 milligrams of B complex every day," and I go, "Good grief!" It's as they used to say on the farm, whipping a tired horse. It's just too much. So it doesn't have to be super strong B complex because then they're going to, I know what they're doing. They're going to use their adrenal function in lieu of their thyroid function. So this is common, very common. So remember, 10 times more women have thyroid disease than men. 10 times.
Oh yeah, let's go there.
Yeah,
Let's talk
because
about the women.
you run on your adrenal function. You're not bad people, you're just creative. So you burn out your adrenals because your thyroid's not working, and that's not your fault again because the iodine's not there. And we haven't promoted iodine because, my goodness, if you fix thyroid function, 300 diseases disappear. Boom. Including polycystic ovary syndrome, which is super common, sadly. But many, many disorders disappear. Let me put a pitch in again for the Okinawans. They have half the cancer in Okinawa that we have in Canada. Half.
Hmm.
I mean, that should raise eyebrows in every medical community. Half the cancer, their heart disease is unheard of over there. Degenerative diseases of the skeletal system, in the joints, the spine, it's remarkably less. So they outlive everybody on earth. That's their claim to fame. And they're happier. Their IQ measures higher, which is very interesting. They don't care about anything because they're healthy. It's on their back burner.
When I lived in Japan, I would walk into my local grocery store, and the first thing when you walk in the store is 5 huge barrels of different types of seaweed. That's the
Wow.
bulk section. You buy your
Yeah.
seaweed in bulk.
Hmm.
It was fantastic and it was all delicious. So yeah, exactly. Nice big daily source of iodine as
Yeah.
part of their daily diet.
Yeah. It's their intake of iodine is very high. There are estimates, but nobody has, nailed it down yet. Maybe because nobody cared or they didn't think to.
Mhm.
But someone ought to do it. Maybe I'll do that. But iodine is so critical. My goodness, that's uh, that's the one nutrient you've got to have every day, and water, right? And then get some protein, fat, and carbohydrates, and then throw in some vitamins if you have time.
So what you're saying is that if someone's coming in and that, because I agree, the marketing on the B complex has been to combat fatigue. So you're saying that people are taking high doses of B vitamins to give themselves energy so they can burn out their adrenals even more rather than going, wait a minute, what should change in the way I move through life that I am not demanding so much of my adrenal glands, that I am not
Hmm.
exhausting myself so much?
Yeah, they're the backup system. They shouldn't be on all the time. Why would we want to be in fight or flight mode constantly? That will shorten your life, I guarantee it, and it won't be pleasant. It'll be short and unpleasant. So we want to defer to that metabolic center or engine, as one of my patients put it. Thank you very much. Learn so much from my patients. They're we're working on their health. I'm
Mhm.
not babysitting their health. I'm helping like you are. Thank you very much. You're helping people to take care of themselves. Huh?
Yeah, it has
Here
to
we
come
go
from
again.
within.
Funky thing this is. It's okay. Hopefully, it says it's charging, but that's good. So
Fingers crossed we don't lose you.
yeah, yeah. If you
Um,
do, I'll just switch to
so
something else.
when you have, and it tends to be your female patients for sure, I agree. Women, pride themselves on being multitaskers and super responsible,
Yeah,
and also a lot of women have problems with setting those calm, healthy boundaries that protect their time and their energy. They don't even
sure.
know what that is, let alone know how to do it. So, what kind of kickback do you get from your patients? Like when they come in and you're like, you got to stop using your adrenals
Yeah.
to
Well,
fuel your daily life. Like does that go anywhere? Do you get like what happens?
they get it. They go, "Oh yeah, I resonate with that exactly." But how do I fix it? And I go, well, we're going to fix the physical component first, and that'll push up into the mental and emotional state. You'll be able to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm healthier in my whole physiology now. So we don't want to run on the fight or flight mechanism. When we start to bounce back and run on the true energy producer of the body, the engine, the thyroid, then we don't need to go into fight or flight mode.
Hmm.
But as I might have mentioned to you, a good friend of mine down in Washington, she said women run on sheer determination and drag their bodies along behind them. I think that sums it up right there. So, but women think differently. Your brain is wired remarkably. It loves estrogen, which changes it and makes it hyper functional. So you can truly multitask, uh, juggling lots of things at one time. But it's tempting to just do more and more and more. Uh, if a woman has a couple of kids or one child, never mind a couple, they have one child. I ask the question often in my office. I have a husband, wife, or a couple of people in my office with a child. I say to her, "Let me ask you something. How many times have you thought of your child since you've been sitting in my office? 10 times? 100 times? Oh yeah." And I asked the guy, "How many times did you think of the child?" I didn't, it doesn't come on his radar. He's not stupid or cruel.
Yeah.
He's just different.
Yeah.
And it's a strange thing. So guys, why do guys have less thyroid disease? That's a very interesting question. I know what the answer is too, by the way. It has everything to do with estrogen, which is the thing that separates the girls from the boys. At least in my book, it does. So estrogen is, the anti-thyroid. And let me give you an example. When a woman is pregnant, as her estrogens rise through the pregnancy, the thyroid function goes down. That's just a fact. So medically, she needs to have less metabolism so she could put on some fat on the body and to retain some water, some fluid to prepare for the pregnancy. So the amniotic fluid and increased blood volume. So those are normal things for estrogen to interfere with. And I call her she estrogen because only women have estrogen to speak of. So estrogen blocks thyroid hormone and various other things, increases thyroid binding globulin. But thyroid, these receptor sites for the hormones are like locks and keys. So if thyroid is blocked by estrogen overbinding, then you functionally have depressed thyroid. So the numbers look great, but she feels pooped out. She's dead dog tired. It's functional thyroid disease, and somebody needs to unravel which area is blocked. If not only to give her some thyroid hormone until she feels better. So like Dr. Midgley would say, he said, titrate the dose to the symptoms. If she's, looks like a duck and walks like a duck, she's a duck, right? So you treat that until she doesn't look like a duck and walk like a duck. So you treat it symptomatically. So if they're cold, corpulent, constipated, cascading, and etc., circadian rhythm is off, that needs to be fixed. You can't live long and healthy like that. You can live long and miserable maybe, but long and happy and healthy life is.
And so you'll do iodine before you'll do a thyroid supplement.
I always give iodine. And it might be in a supplement because I figure, well, if I'm going to give some iodine, I might as well throw in some tyrosine and some, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But got to have iodine. That's the game changer right there.
Well, what about desiccated thyroid or Armour thyroid?
Well, those, of course, contain T4 or thyroxine, which is the thyroid hormone, and its cousin T3, which is active. So desiccated thyroid, fantastic stuff. You can get it anywhere in America. God bless America. I'm telling you that. That's a true thing. You can get Armour thyroid in the USA. I used to import it from the USA to Canada for Canadians until we had a huge shortage, real or imagined, some years ago. And then a Canadian company by the name of IRFA stepped in, a great little company back in Quebec. And they make IRFA thyroid, and lots of our American cousins like that because they like the fact that it doesn't have some fillers in it that now the Armour has. So I think it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But that said, we've been using desiccated thyroid for a very long time. There are woodcuts and chiseled in walls graphics in China that are 5,000 years old, and they're depicting people removing thyroid glands from a pig and drying it by the fire. So we've been using it a long time as a support to metabolism and health, and it's not harmful. So I would say lots of people, sometimes if they're really desperately low or I sense that they're really low, I'll just start them on some thyroid hormone right away. Boom. 60 or more, less often 120 milligrams, but 60 certainly milligrams. I wish it wasn't a prescription. I think it shouldn't be. Insulin's no longer prescribed. You can buy it over the counter. Thank goodness we can buy aspirin over the counter. 25,000 Americans died last year from aspirin.
Yeah.
But how many died from thyroid? I don't think any. None.
Follow the money, honey.
Yeah, exactly. So that said, many Americans and Canadians are being prescribed Synthroid, which is a synthetic thyroid, which is a terrible misnomer. It's not thyroid at all if it's synthetic. You can't patent thyroxine or T4 that humans or all mammals make. Can't patent it, but you can sure patent its twisted up cousin, which is Synthroid. Or L-troxin is what it's sometimes known as. But Synthroid is not thyroxine, and anybody that says it is absolutely wrong, or don't understand basic chemistry. So if you put the molecules next to each other, they're not the same. My left and right hand aren't the same either. They look similar, but they're not the same. And with hormones, the whole lock and key analogy is very appropriate, because if that hormone isn't identical, it doesn't bind to the receptor inside the cell. So the engine of the cell is the mitochondria. That's where we make energy. And if that thyroid hormone doesn't bind there, it doesn't start the engine. So let's just back up for 1 second. Let me get a drink here. It's just water, by the way. So here's the thing. So many people only get their TSH tested, mostly, north of the border. South of the border, they do a great job of testing thyroid. In my experience, having lived and worked down there and trained down there. But that said, if you get a T4 and it, quote unquote, is normal, it means nothing. According to Dr. Midgley, again, the guy's again one of the last remaining geniuses of thyroid on earth. We must listen to him as much as we can before we don't have him. But don't look at the TSH, because we know in 2019 there was published research, which I quote in my book manuscript. The pituitary, which is the source of the TSH, is not sensitive to T4 or thyroid hormone like your body cells. So if your pituitary says, oh, there's plenty of thyroid hormone around, it's wrong. It's a bad test. It's one we've defaulted to, and Dr. Midgley is not happy about that, and neither am I, frankly. It's clinically a disaster. Patient comes in, they know they have a low thyroid function. Their medical doctor, whose hands are tied in this province, all they can order is a TSH. Then the TSH doesn't say anything. It's who cares what it says? I've seen them at 500 and I've seen them at 0. It makes no difference. Person is hypothyroid until proven otherwise. The only 3 cases I've seen in almost 40 years in practice, all of those hyperthyroid patients had thyroid cancers. So I've never seen another case otherwise. And here's the crazy thing. The treatment for thyroid cancer is thyroid hormone. Wait a second. That sounds crazy, doesn't it? So that was invented almost 200 years ago by somebody named Heinrich Bayer. And if that rings a bell, it should, because Bayer aspirin has been around a long time. But the Bayer company are a huge pharmaceutical interest in Germany. And they were the biggest in the world until the Second World War. Now they're just one of some big ones, but Bayer discovered you could cure thyroid cancer with thyroid hormone, not Synthroid, thyroid hormone.
Yeah.
So I find that amazing. So my patients are happy and healthy and alive. They've survived thyroid cancer. They didn't have radiation and biopsies or excisional biopsies, chemotherapy. Radiation's terrible stuff. Cutting out a thyroid gland is a terrible waste. They get enormous. I've seen huge thyroid glands, but they're underactive. They get bigger when they're trying to make thyroid hormone. And they also get bigger when they're overactive, but that's pretty rare, relatively, very, very rare. So remember, 100,000 plus Americans have thyroid disease. I would say that's conservative, because I love to watch the news at night. I watch from lots of US states, the news, and I look at the neck of the person doing the newscast. And if their neck is swollen and if it has a crease, they got some thyroid trouble. I can spot them pregnant before they even admit it on air. That's because their thyroid swells up, and that's very interesting.
That is very. Now we guess what we're all going to be looking for. So
Well,
question for
good.
you. You have a client who comes in and
Yeah.
they're low enough in their thyroid function that you're going to put them on the desiccated thyroid right away.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
you're going to put them on iodine, maybe 3 to 6 milligrams a day, or
Yeah.
however much they feel comfortable taking. How long, and let's say, because when I look at thyroid, and we get back to this thing of women driving themselves and not being able to set boundaries around their time and energy and to using their brain to make all the decisions instead of listening to their body. So let's say someone is willing to deal with that emotional piece as well.
Mhm.
Okay, so they are maybe they take a workshop learning how to set calm, healthy boundaries and claim that space for themselves in the world and so on. And they're on the desiccated thyroid and they're on the iodine. So they're doing mind, body, spirit all at once. How long do you think that person would need to be on the desiccated thyroid until they could wean off and just take the daily iodine and be
Great question. Answered this one many times, many times. Let's see, where should I begin with that? By the way, I've had patients call me back the next day, say, "Oh, I took 60 milligrams of thyroid. I can't believe it. I have energy. I woke up today and I feel like I can do something. My mental process is changing because the brain cells use iodine or thyroid hormone via iodine. So the brain has to get thyroid hormone too. But that said, there's another piece of the puzzle that we've talked about, but we'll want to bring it in now, and that's the adrenals. So if you've been running on your adrenal function as opposed to thyroid function, you want to support the adrenals at the same time. I made a rule in my own mind, and I quote myself in my book. It's like, don't treat the thyroid if you're not going to treat the adrenals too. Very few women don't need adrenal support. I met two that I can recall that didn't. But that said, most do. And what's the connection to thyroid beyond the fact that you're running on the adrenals instead of thyroid? But the connection is the main adrenal hormone is called cortisol or hydrocortisone. So cortisone or cortisol is the same hormone. We make that for obvious reasons, or perhaps not obvious. We make it because it makes us feel energetic, which is nice. It raises blood sugar, it raises sugar levels in the bloodstream, and those are good to help you have energy. And it's a fight or flight hormone. So cortisol you need during stress. And if you live from stress to stress, that's unfortunate because you're going to burn out your adrenals. But you need the cortisol to get the thyroid hormone into the mitochondria. So if you have lots of thyroid hormone and no adrenal function, you might as well not have either. So you don't want to burn out the adrenals because then when the thyroid recovers, it won't make any difference. They'll feel the same. So if you're dead dog tired, if you're exhausted, you get some good adrenal support, and it better have some licorice root in it, or it doesn't work. I can quote an article or two on that one, but it needs to have licorice root in it. And then usually within a week, there's a remarkable boost in energy. But don't live on that. You got to get the iodine and you got to get the thyroid running. I don't want it to sound too complicated. Support the adrenals, They run on, B complex. So if they get a mild, don't get a big B complex. That is get a, 10 milligrams of them all is good, except for B5. We can have hundreds of that. The adrenals eat that stuff up. But that said, you got the adrenals taken care of. That'll help the whole circadian rhythm. That gets rid of a couple of those C's, I can guarantee it. So they get to have a better sleep then and wake up more refreshed, and that's a winning process, because that'll help the thyroid, and the thyroid needs cortisol too. So, and the adrenals need thyroid hormone. It's interesting, great relationship. They're really kind of married, I like to say. So did I answer the question, or did I?
Yeah, but so desiccated thyroid, iodine, the multivitamin which you delineated, and supporting the adrenals.
Mhm.
So how long till that person can then come off the desiccated thyroid and just be
Okay.
nutrients?
Yeah, they're gonna start to feel more energetic, usually within a week, 10 days tops. But should they come off it? Well, remember, this is generational deficiency. So if we've been iodine deficient, my grandmother or my great grandmother, grandmother, mother, daughter, and sons too. This deficiency is a serious business, but generationally it just gets, the cells are impoverished of iodine, and we have trillions upon trillions of somatic cells that, never mind neuronal cells, that need to get the iodine and need to get the thyroid hormone working. So if I had one patient, I sent them on a vacation for 6 weeks. I said, that's how you'll recover.
She actually took a 6-week vacation. That's amazing.
Yeah, but not very many people can do that. They can't just unplug from their life, because when you plug back in, it's all still there, and it's worse. There's all the dishes have piled up, kind of thing, and all the other issues. So it's a gradual process. We've learned how to live in a war zone kind of a thing. We want to unlearn that, and it takes a bit to begin to say, hey, I'm okay, I've got energy, I can calm down, hey, I'm going to do a little less today, I don't need to do that, I'll do it tomorrow, or that kind of thing. But it's a process, and it's all integrated, and it's dynamic, it's always changing. I had someone call up and I was very worried, she didn't know, she was feeling strange, and I said, that's what feeling normal feels like. You poor thing. It's going to be okay, but you'll get used to that. But it's great to have people like yourself and even myself to walk along with people. We guide people and direct them, because I want everybody else to get feeling lots of energy and feel great, like I do. I feel guilty sometimes. I got all this energy. If everybody was doing that, my gosh, I think it would fix a lot of things. I really do.
Yeah.
But
so what I'm hearing you saying is that, first of all, there's generational deficiencies, so those can take time to resolve. But if the person hits every one of those physical points of treatment, the thing that determines how long until they heal is, can they learn how to have a more healthy daily life where they are not fatiguing themselves, they're not triggering their adrenals, and they are creating some space and ease.
They'll do that more and more as they get physically healthier.
Right.
Again, it's exactly. We're integrated. Our mind is part of our body, and you can't separate the two, thankfully. But I have people come and say, oh, I'm really doing a lot of meditation and things. And I go, yeah, but you're completely forgetting your physicalness.
Yes.
You can meditate on the top of a mountain for weeks on end and be at peace with the universe, but if you come back down the hill, all the trouble is still there, and you have to be physically strong. So we want to make people physically stronger, and it begins with every cell making energy, and they all do. All the heart cells make enough energy in tandem to contract the heart constantly. Never sleeps. Aren't you glad? Yeah. So, by the way, the heart uses the most thyroid hormone, and then the organ that uses the second most thyroid hormone. None of my students ever got that question right. And I forgive them for that because I had to look it up. It's the ovaries. I mean, what? Why would the ovaries need so much energy? Well, that's where the next generation comes from. So it's
Hence
pretty important.
polycystic ovary syndrome running rampant when there's iodine deficiency.
That's right. Exactly right. It's fixable. We
Yeah,
don't have.
I remember coming across Dr. Jonathan V. Wright's remedy
Oh,
for
yeah.
yeah, like it's like just put like 8 drops of potassium iodide in a glass of water, drink it every day and boom.
Yeah.
No surgery, no.
Yeah. Jonathan saved my life. He told me about, you know, trace elements like chromium and molybdenum and iodine, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
I watched him on the stage with one of his nurses doing the polycystic ovary iodine treatment, putting it right on the abdomen.
Yeah.
But Dr. Wright is a hero of mine. I admire him tremendously. I trust he's well and healthy. I haven't talked to him a couple of years now.
Yeah, me
But
neither. But that's what we do in the intestinal stricture protocol because we've got a mixture of potassium iodide, colloidal silver, and DMSO to drive it.
ooh,
Yeah, to drive
yeah,
it. And that goes right on the intestines. And then a layer of castor oil and
wow,
a
yeah,
nice heating pad.
yeah,
And
beautiful.
yeah, we've had strictures literally got we've had lumps of scar tissue gone confirmed with colonoscopy and biopsy and
Beautiful.
and I still class it as experimental and I can't
Hmm.
I have to be quiet because the FDA doesn't like DMSO and so we have to be a bit stealth about some of these things and we can't make claims
Yeah.
for them. So, but for people
Well,
who want to experiment, and I love the fact that you're willing to come forward and say, it's almost impossible to overdose on iodine and you don't have to be going for blood work to monitor your thyroid. Like that's going to set so many people free right
yeah,
there. So like, thank you for
yeah.
coming forward with that
You're
information.
welcome. It's my pleasure. Yeah, I would, if somebody out anywhere has proof that iodine is toxic, bring it on. I'll show you you're wrong.
Mhm.
There, the people, the 100 people that were, poisoned with iodine got 15,000 times the RDA, which is a lot, for one whole year. None of them died. Some of them, a good number of them became hyperthyroid, but it dissipated as the iodine diminished.
Right.
I bet you none of them were cold, constipated, corpulent, or disturbing their circadian rhythms, etc.
Okay, what else is in your medicine bag?
Good question. I like to keep, because I'm a physician, I like to keep some suture material. And because people could get cuts or really bad penetrating injuries. But, there are things called steri strips, which were, made popular in emergency rooms, emergency departments. And it's a very, very sticky, high tensile bandage
Mhm.
minus a pad. And so you can use duct tape too in an emergency. Have duct tape. My gosh, could fix everything from a flat tire to a broken limb. If you don't have a stick to put on an arm or a leg, you can wrap it with duct tape. And if you have a really bad laceration, you can close it with duct tape. In fact, I happen to have some horses on my farm, and one of them got into some sharp metal in the barn and cut his neck up pretty bad. So I just duct taped it closed. We didn't call the vet that time. It wasn't. It looked horrible, but wasn't that deep a slice. But it was pretty deep.
How'd you get the duct tape off?
It comes off very easily. The horse will get it off.
Oh,
It's
because
the
we have this
question.
image of duct tape is like once you put it on, how are you going to get it off?
Yeah, better question is how do you keep it on there, because they're moving, and they're kind of oblivious to their injuries in most cases anyway. But duct tape's a good one for cuts or fractures or almost anything else. You can make it into a bowl or a cup, and it's pretty remarkable stuff. Um, the multivitamins, I like to keep some spare thyroid hormone around because I don't want to go through another. Uh, oh, what did they call it? They said that there was a manufacturer shortage, which was not true.
Right.
I know because a friend of mine was working in a warehouse for the pharmaceutical end of things, and he says, "Oh no, there's no shortage. Just we got racks and racks of thyroid hormone." And I thought, well, who said there's a thyroid deficiency or thyroid hormone deficiency? But it sure upset a lot of people. I'm telling you, it was madness on the internet. In America particularly, a lot of people take thyroid hormone and we're freaking out. So always have some of that.
Do we have any suspicions as to why they created an artificial
Well,
skin?
I think it happens more often than we would like to think. So if there's like that's a critical thing, just like insulin. Um, Goodness, I would hate to be dependent on that. That would just kill people. But thyroid's pretty darn important, and I would say squirrel some away. So I keep quite a bit here for my patients just in case.
Mm.
So they expect me to take care of them in an emergency, and I'm trying to do that. So, but beyond that, I like to store up food. I tell people get a big sack of rice. 20 pounds of rice will keep a long time. And then you got some food, you got some starch anyways to eat and you get some water in there and you're good to go. You can make a pot out of duct tape. No, it wouldn't work. But you could use an old hubcap as a bowl for crying out loud, or a boiler. But have food, wheat doesn't keep very long. Whole grains keep longer. So rice and oats and that type of thing keep a long time, and you can eat that. And there are desiccated. I've got some K rations, military rations that don't taste that good. But hey, if you're hungry, it's good. And I keep a lot of those protein bars. We kind of work through them, but I like to keep dozens and dozens of those things around, because if you don't have a meal, that's a good replacement. It's like, I ate something today. So you never know when things are going to go off the rails. We've had plenty of disasters around the world anyway.
Very true.
So just because, people depend on me, and I take that seriously. And I probably have enough multivitamins for the entire town squirreled away. So if it ever came to that, I'd just give them away and say, look, have at her.
I wanted to just jump back in real quick to the multi. All right, we lost you for a minute, but you're back. So we're good to go. I wanted to go back to your earlier comment about not taking too much B vitamins, because what we found, and that may just be for like your normal person, but what we found for people with chronic long-term conditions like Crohn's and colitis, that we actually needed nice like 50 milligrams of the B complex ongoing for quite a long period of time. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, well, of course, because the gut is so important to have it functional, the mucous membrane. If you're not absorbing nutrients, which you're not doing during inflammatory processes like colitis, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you're going to have to kind of overdo it a little bit to get enough in there.
Right.
Of course, the mucous membrane then becomes impoverished or malnourished, and then it can't heal. So it's a bit of a catch-22. So remember something from embryology 101 in medical school, or in pre-med even. The gut's the first structure that forms in all humans,
Hmm.
and everything comes from that. So a gut's pretty important if it forms first.
Exactly.
That, that
Exactly.
primal gut tube, very, very important. So nothing lives without a gut. You
Yeah.
know, even a one-celled organism like a paramecium is just a mouth with a gut. So you have to have a gut, and that's critical. So nutrition is number one, and then of course add the iodine.
And the selenium and the trace
Exactly.
minerals and like we need it all. Um, so in closing, Dr. Tyler, is there
Mm,
anything that you would like to say to people? If you could leave one directive from your culmination of your life's work so far,
mhm.
what do you want people to know?
Great, great question. I had a student shadowing me yesterday in my clinic, and when she left, she was a former student of mine at the medical school. And when she left, I said to her, "Now, what are you going to do from this day forward?" And she says, I don't know. And I handed her a bottle of liquid iodine. I said, "You're going to take this every day." And she's a new mother. Oh my goodness, poor thing. You know, she's just going to be stressed to the max. But the iodine's number one. That's, if I could give that to everyone on the street corner, I'd give them iodine. So critical.
Love it.
By the way, can I put a political plug in? You can feel free to edit that.
No, go
But
for it.
in this province, we're different from all the other provinces, as you have gathered if you watch the news. So we are unfortunately being ruled by some political machinations that are going to give trouble to all of us in British Columbia and all of us in Canada.
Yeah.
It'll set a precedent, and that is that government wants to take more and more control away from us. That's common everywhere, I think. But that said, they do want to take more control of our medical lives, and they want to take that out of the hands of the person, the individual. And we're fighting against that presently by fighting this Bill 36 that was, just pushed through the House very surreptitiously and secretively.
Yeah.
But we're watching, and we know it went through, and we're trying to put a halt to that, because we want people to hold on to their right to choose their health care and to choose their doctor, and to have privacy. My goodness, my medical records are sacrosanct. No one should be able to kick the door in and take those and read them. That's not right. But that's what this bill proposes, that they can come and take your medical records anytime. Ooh, scary stuff. Wouldn't happen in America. I'm gonna say I hope it wouldn't. I hope my American cousins and brothers and sisters down there, and I got lots down there, believe me, that they wouldn't let it happen.
Well, not in Texas and Florida, but maybe in
No.
other places. Like people are
God bless
falling like
America.
dominoes.
Yeah,
You know,
it's unfortunate.
I mean, I'm totally happy to head in this direction.
Yeah.
So what I was, because I was talking to my chiropractor, having the same conversation, and what I said to him is, I said, yes, but do you have the email of every single one of your patients? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, so then you're covered, because here's what we have to do. When governments become illegal, which is what's
Uh-huh.
happening here in Canada, everything that the Trudeau government is doing is actually not legal. So when they push us into illegal behaviors, what we have to do is have our email list of all our patients email out and say, this is where I am. Here's how you can access me. And I said to him, I said, there's no sign outside. There's no sign on the door. Nobody knows. You just tell us where to show up. We'll show up. We'll pay cash. Like, we can create an alternate system.
Oh,
We
yeah.
don't need to lose our health care. Obviously, it would be preferable if the government wasn't doing illegal things, but we can't all we can do is our best to try and counter that. But for me, I always go worst case scenario. I say worst case scenario, this global reset train is not going to stop. Everything's going to burn.
Right.
We need new systems for everything.
Yes.
How are we going to do that? Because I'm already looking at that for my own people, right? Because we've had PayPal trying to tell us what kind of supplements we can sell and saying, you take that off your shop or we're going to cancel your account. And we were
Wow.
like, since when did you become the FDA? What jurisdiction do you have? So this kind of illegal activity is happening across the board. And I'm kind of forecasting into it, going, okay, well, you know what? If that's the way it's going to go, we're going to run the shop like we run our membership programs, where
Yeah.
the whole thing is password protected. You don't, Google doesn't know it's there. Nobody even knows it's there unless you already are in my circle and I have your email. And then I'm going to send you your login information and we're just going to keep going because
Exactly.
we have to get out in front when all these companies and governments start behaving illegally.
Hmm.
We have to just go, okay, let's go stealth. Let's go down here.
Yeah.
And
We can do that. I'm all for that. I mean, that's where I started. So
yes.
I've integrated into the medical system, even to my shame, but I can just as easily unintegrate from it because that's where we come from.
Like when they were trying to force all you naturopaths to get vaccinated.
Oh yeah, well, a good number of us pushed back. Some of them were all for it.
I know.
Exactly.
I know.
But they're perhaps the same people that are just interested in doing filler injections and Botox injections, and that's not naturopathic medicine. That's not nature cure.
I did a blog post on it.
If they disagree with me, phone me up and talk to me about it. But I've got
you were one of the few
tiny license number. They don't. I've got the experience, and
you were one of the few that was willing to stand up publicly and say, well, yeah. I saw after I met you, I saw the videos archived of you going on the news and saying this is ridiculous.
I mean, it cost me my job teaching, but I can still teach, and thanks to you, I still have a voice. So it's powerful, and the people that are listening are interested. So, I don't want to just be a mouthpiece at the school too. So,
yeah, I think the call is for all of us to go a little bit stealth and as far as we need to, but to not let, illegal structures and governing bodies determine our reality because we're sovereign beings. We don't need to listen to Big Daddy. We don't need to.
That's right. It's our life. It's our health. If I want to drink coffee, I will, with cream in it and sugar even, or not. But don't tell me.
Yes.
Tell me I'm not going to have that. Or
exactly.
If I want to drive across the country, I'm going to do it. We used to have a right under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but nasty political people will find a way around all those rules that protect us ordinary taxpayers. Taxpayers have power. We have our votes. We can vote them out, but we have to organize, and they don't let you organize. If you can't get together, you can't organize, and you can't fight them. But I think you'll see a struggle against the premier appointed here in British Columbia. We didn't vote him in.
Yeah.
Mr. Eby, he was appointed by the outgoing premier and the cabinet, basically the outgoing premier.
Well, and also I was just looking at the recent stat, 30,000 people in BC have moved to Alberta because their premier is fighting back against what Trudeau's doing and saying this is ridiculous. Yeah. Which is basically saying what we're saying.
Yeah. Alberta a terrific place. It's cold.
Oh, I grew up there, so I'm like, I'm not going back there. I'm going stealth. That's what I'm doing. I'm already stealth, but I'm going to go even more stealth.
I'd like to go stealth to Florida.
Yeah.
Or Texas, I could become Texan very easily. And they might not agree with me, but I think Texas is a great state.
Yeah. But I know some small towns in BC where people are
Yes.
all have already created this parallel reality.
Yeah.
So a lot of the commerce and trade there is done in cash.
Hmm.
You can get, when they tried to, I don't know what happened, but they passed a gun law or they tried to pass a gun law. Nobody listened. They were just like, here's where the gun shop is. You walk in, you ask for what you want, you pay cash, you walk out. There's no paperwork, there's no storefront sign. It's just like, well, you can legislate whatever you want, but when what you're doing is illegal, we will
Yeah.
create a parallel reality. And then everyone there is self-sufficient in terms of their food supply. They all
Yeah.
know how to hunt. They put a deer or, an elk in their freezer every winter.
Wow.
They're already growing their own food. Like there's small towns across BC who are already functioning like this. They've already built the parallel reality. So, and I say, well, great. If
Hmm.
this is what it takes for humanity to shift into a better iteration of ourselves, okay, let's let the old structures burn and let's
Yeah.
like the Kali process, right? The rebirth arising from the destruction. Let's focus on the rebirth. What do we want to create here? You
Yeah.
know, we want to create freedom, we want to create access, we want to create equality. Well, let's just go ahead and do that. Let's not wait for the government to do it or give us permission.
Oh yeah, they're not.
Yeah.
Uh, we have to fight. Some of my colleagues retired early, sadly. Sad to lose them.
Mhm.
But they just didn't have any energy left for the fight. But
Yeah.
lots of us do, and we'll fight on. And I mean, if we all if we all flee to Alberta, there's nobody left here to fight.
It's
And then
true.
they'll come for us in Alberta, I guarantee you.
Yeah, it won't stop.
But
This is a worldwide initiative. Anybody who's listening or even keeping an eye on history can see that.
yes, yes. But
Um,
let's again not forget we're the taxpayers. The voters have strength in their votes. Uh, we're not being legislated to vote a certain way yet. Uh, but
yeah, but how did Trudeau get in?
yeah, good question.
So that how did Biden get in? Like the corruption's already happened.
Yeah,
So again, we're back to, but I think like what you said, like you're like, no, let's fight back. I'm like, let's ignore it and create a parallel reality. Well, both
yeah.
both responses are needed. Both,
Oh,
and you
sure.
can do both. Just because
Yeah.
you're creating parallel reality doesn't mean you're not fighting back over here,
Hmm.
right? So I think each person has to follow their inner guidance. You
Sure.
know,
Do what
what
they can do. Each one do what they can do. Some people can lick envelopes, and that's great. Or deliver, pamphlets and that type of thing.
yeah.
So I'm excited to get an update from our people working behind the scenes and in out in front. They're trying to recall EB, and I don't know how that's going to go, but we'll see.
Yeah.
At least they're pushing back, which is and Canadians, they do have a spine, which is good. Sometimes you wouldn't know it, but boy, we get backed into a corner. We're dangerous. I'm told.
Well, trucker convoy.
Yeah,
Who did that?
yeah. Bless their hearts. What a bunch of great people.
Yeah,
Where are we without truckers? Everything we get comes in a truck.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
When this enforced vaccination of naturopath directive first came down the line, and I was talking to a friend of mine, I did a blog post about this actually
oh,
on one of my websites, not my gut site because I keep that clean because I don't want to be censored, but I've started another site under jeanniepatelthompson.com where I get a little more vocal. And I had written to him and said, listen, here's the problem with, and now you and I could probably do an entire podcast on how naturopathy has evolved and how now it's like kind of under the wing of the medicine, the medical, and is
yeah.
that a good thing or is that not? And when
Uh,
I first heard about naturopathic, I was so excited about it, back in the early 90s, late 80s, because I was like, wow, there's actually trained, like really skilled professionals who don't want to give you drugs, who are educated in all the other things and all the other options. And I was like, wow. And I've seen that evolve over the last, 2 decades or so to be
Mhm.
a lot of naturopaths are really proud of the fact that they can prescribe drugs and they suggest drugs and they suggest vaccines and they suggest it's like, well, we have an entire humongous allopathic medical pharmaceutical complex for that. Naturopathy was supposed to be an alternative.
Yeah,
And
let's be different and celebrate our differences, right?
yeah, it's
And
like
give
if,
a
if I
different
want drugs
perspective.
and vaccines, I can go to my MD and it's covered. It's even free. Like I'm not coming here for that.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I had said to him, I said, and his thing was, I have worked so hard for my license and nobody's taking that away from me. And I'm like, that's ridiculous because I would not take advice. You are a naturopath, and because he'd already told me stories about patients he was treating who'd had adverse reactions to the COVID vaccine, a couple of deaths from like blood clots in the brain, and like he had a clear front row seat to how these vaccines could be damaging and could be
Yes.
dangerous. But then you're going to get vaccinated just to keep your license. I said, I would not take advice from you. Why would I take health advice from someone who is like, I'm willing to
Exactly.
do something I know is dangerous, I know is damaging, just to keep this piece of paper? And I'm
You know,
like, that's where I'm
where do
like,
they draw the line? You know,
exactly.
what's too much for them? You know, what if it's mandatory death at 65? Are
To
they
keep your
okay with that?
license.
He'd be dead, maybe. I would be. It's like this the euthanasia and the pushing towards, legalizing suicide and things. It's get rid of people. You know, the whole agenda is reduce the world population. If Bill Gates says it, it must be great.
Yeah,
Horrible, horrible man. Who put him in charge? He wasn't elected.
I
A
know.
bunch of money, and he makes the politicians dance. It's
Yeah,
very sad. But
yeah.
so if this Bill 36, if it goes through and it gets fully approved, then what government has done is they've offloaded their draconian measures onto our colleges, the people that regulate us. So those colleges will then they'll be the bad guys, but they won't have any choice. But they're government appointed anyway. So it says here, I'm going to quote it. It says they must impose vaccination requirements on all health practitioners under their authority. Wow. Must is a scary word. Must impose proof of up-to-date vaccination status as a condition for licensing. Must dismiss without notice or a hearing any application for licensing or renewal of license that doesn't contain proof of vaccination. If any healthcare worker dissents, they may be disciplined with loss of license. Oh, brother. I mean, it's the same old story. And then if they make false or misleading statements, they may, without notice to the person affected, apply for court orders to enter the premises, lock the premises, fine the healthcare worker up to $200,000, and order jail time for up to 2 years. I would just go
Unbelievable.
off. I would just go without a license, and I'd say
Absolutely.
I don't need a license. I'll become a natural health consultant. There you go.
Exactly. A holistic health coach.
Like my dear friend Dr. Kine says to me, he says, "Do we become stupid overnight suddenly because they tell us we're not vaccinated, so we're not licensed? No, we'll just go underground." And anyways, I'm sorry.
And that's that parallel reality, right?
Yeah,
That
we'll
parallel
just create
reality.
another economy. It exists, and they want to get rid of it. I know that, but
Yeah.
hence the digitization of money, and so you can't digitize the potato though. I like that one.
Exactly.
Also, if I pay with my father in the olden days, he got paid with a sack of potatoes one time, 50 pounds.
Yeah.
Farmer was happy to trade it, and he was happy to. We ate a lot of potatoes today. They're
My
good.
dad, my dad's an optometrist, and he traded once for a bucket of mussels.
Oh, there you go. That's nice.
Yeah, like it's like, hey, we can do that.
I'm growing a lot of food on my farm, and I'm going to keep doing that, and I'm learning to do that better. So, if I have a off year for apples, I might have to trade potatoes for that or whatever. But it's good.
Yeah,
It's a good way to live in the old fashioned way, but it's nothing old fashioned about it. We have to be smart, right?
yeah,
Um,
exactly. A lot of
but
big choices coming down
we
the
can
pipe for
we can do
everybody.
this. There's smart people like you and lots of others, and
But I'm
we
I'm going to tell you a
yeah.
story that made me realize why there's so many people. So I was in a restaurant with my daughter yesterday, and a mother and what looked like her daughter came in, and the waitress said to them, "Oh, there's 3 tables. Choose where you want to sit." And they both froze. And their mother was like, and then she turns to the daughter and says, "Where do you want to sit?" And the daughter looks even more uncomfortable at being given the choice, actually shoves her mom, like, "Stop it, don't try to put that on me." And the mom looks back at the waitress and says, "Just put us anywhere you like." The way I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a front row seat.
Yeah,
The human beings cannot even make a choice about where to sit.
yeah.
Like, this is the
That's
level of disempowerment that how much of humanity is operating from. And then
mhm.
we're going to expect those people to make a good choice about the drugs and substances entering their body. Like, you
Yeah,
know,
it's very sad, isn't it?
and they couldn't choose. The waitress ended up saying, "Okay, how about you just sit here?" And they were like, "Perfect, thank you." And you could see the relief. "Thank you for making the decision for me
Wow,
because I couldn't handle it."
that's tragic, really.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, and
it's
how
just
many
it's
humans are like
completely
that?
give up our power for everything.
Yeah, yeah. And that's when I went, wow, it's no coincidence that I'm here witnessing this,
Wow.
because it automatically made me think, how many humans are this uncomfortable with any degree of personal power and ownership of their own bodies' likes and dislikes.
Yeah.
Like, you can't even choose a table to sit at.
The song Deep in the Heart of Texas keeps coming to my mind. I saw a picture of a grandmother in a grocery store in, I don't know, in Texas somewhere. It's a big state, I know, but she was toting a very large pistol on her hip, so she had a open carry license. And boy, you wouldn't mess with her because that was a very large caliber pistol. But you know what? You're perfectly safe around her. She's not going to pull it out and rob you or shoot you, but she might defend you, right?
Yeah.
But
Well, it's interesting because there's large communities of Canadians in numerous places in Mexico, in Costa Rica, in
uh-huh,
Nicaragua, in San Juan del Sur. There's like, so a lot of Canadians are going, "I'm not willing to live like this.
yeah,
I'm out. I'm out. I'm going to go somewhere that I can create that parallel reality, but not go be underground with it. Like,
yeah,
have it out in the open and not have the governments of those countries trying to basically treat me like I'm in communist China."
yeah.
So,
Agreed. It's worrisome. I was told something the other day by a colleague. We were on a nationwide chat. So and we had a handful of doctors from across Canada, talking about what we've just been talking about, and we're all on the same page. But the doctor from Alberta spoke up and he said, he read somewhere that if 15% of the population or of a group are determined enough that they can kind of steer the story, they can
mhm.
steer the way things go. But 15%, I hope we have 15%. I think I think we're shy of the mark, but anyway. But
Yeah,
those of us who have a critical thought in our head process, we need to keep in touch with each other. That's for sure.
absolutely.
And
And we will. And so we
yeah,
will.
stay healthy. I tell people, and then you can stay out of the medical system unless it comes forcing you to take medicine. Here, open your mouth and take this pill. No, I don't want to.
And see,
Uh,
that's the other arm that I'm really pushing on. So on my main site, listentoyourgut.com, which they massively demoted me in the search engine rankings, but thankfully did not censor me. But I had been proactive. I saw this coming. And before the censorship hit, I went in and changed the titles and keywords of every blog post that might
yeah.
trigger. Because with COVID, I thought anything flu, respiratory, lung, all of that stuff, they're going to hit first. So I had gone because I have, I share the protocols that I'm sure, utilize for very effective protocols for any kind of lung infection, respiratory infection. And we're back to that substance you love, hydrogen peroxide. We're back to vaporizers and nebulizers. And, there's so much information. So I changed all that. But because I was an alternative health site that used to show up on page 1 of Google twice for a lot of keyword terms, I've been bumped to page 8 or 15. Okay, no problem. No problem. You didn't shut me down. But what I've also done is on that site, listentoyourgut.com, I have a home remedy section. And I have 350 pages of treatments that are tried and tested by my 250,000 readers. It's all free because I'm like, people, you have got to get fluent in caring for your own health. You have to have, like we talked at the beginning, what's in your medicine bag? What do you have on hand that you can treat these things that arise? And so what I would add to your medicine bag for my uses is I would add comfrey and wild oregano oil right off the bat. Those are my two.
How about Pepto-Bismol? Because bismuth sulfate, if we could get the raw material, bismuth comes out of the ground. Bismuth will kill all the bugs that we don't want. So if you get food poisoning, it will fix it in a day.
From the bismuth.
But good old Pepto-Bismol tablets or the
which
liquid,
is available everywhere.
Yes.
And doesn't cost as much as wild oregano, which will do the same thing. So
it's a quick mineral fix. It doesn't taste half bad either. But
I keep telling people, go to the home remedies. There's a drop down list. It's all free. Like, build your fluency so that when you get sick with whatever, your first thought is not, I have to go to the doctor, because that's how they're controlling you. Your first thought should be, what's the remedy, the tried and tested? Let's go look it up. And let's gain fluency in those protocols and in those.
We should run through some home remedies at some point. We could do hours on that, couldn't we?
Absolutely. Well, that's why there's 350 pages of it there.
Exactly.
So and it's not just like, because my frustration was there's a lot of books on homeopathic and herbal and natural, but they'll give you do this or this or this or this.
Yes.
And then you're like, yeah, but which one works? Like, I don't have time to test 4 or 5 different remedies. What's the one that pretty much works for everybody all of the time? And that's what's in my home remedy section.
I absolutely have 2 tubes of this. I have arnica cream and arnica gel.
Absolutely.
So, my wife sprained her ankle the other day. You rub it with arnica and it and it heals very quickly.
And how about castor oil?
And hits their head. Now they got a brain injury. You can put arnica right on their forehead.
Absolutely. And castor oil, another very wonderful substance.
Powerful stuff. You can grow the darn beans on your own property.
Just be careful harvesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Scott Tyler. And we are
a lot of fun, Ginny Patel Thompson.
Yes, sir.
You're a big, big help to us all. So thanks for doing this. It's the payment comes in many ways back to you. It's good it's good karma. You're sowing some great seeds there, and thanks for doing that.
Thank you. And we'll see what kind of, if we get enough questions from people, we'll just have you back on again. Do
Sure,
another one.
I'll do it. I'll be glad to do it. Sure.
Lovely. Thanks for holding the line for us.
You too. Take your iodine.
All right. Awesome.